Ki imcha mekor chayim, ba'orecha nireh or. Psalm 36. What a spectacular connection to this week's Torah portion and the beauty of wrapping ourselves. We're going to wrap ourselves in the talitot. We'll wrap ourselves in song and chant and meditation and growing together in this beautiful Shabbat community. How precious is your kindness, O God. The children of humanity take refuge in the shadow of your wings. For with you is the source of life. In your light do we see light. Ki imcha mekor chayim, ki imcha mekor chayim, ki imcha mekor chayim, be'orecha for with you is the source of life. 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 In your light do we see light. Ki imcha mekor chayim. Imcha mekor chayim, imcha mekor chayim, be'orecha nireh or. Shabbat shalom l'kulam.
Shabbat shalom.
So good to be with you and to see all of you. I am honored and delighted to welcome almost into our sanctuary. Although Nancy's been here before, so you can imagine her being here once again. To welcome our friend and teacher and mentor, Rabbi Nancy Flam. Just a little bit about her preparations for this moment. Nancy is a pioneer in the field of Jewish healing and contemporary spirituality. She did serve as the founding director of IJS, of the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. She worked as the senior program director, heading retreat-based learning programs for rabbis and for community leaders, and for cantors. It didn't say cantors. She directed the highly innovative prayer project. We have all studied with her in her prayer project, and taught on the faculty of the Jewish Mindfulness Meditation Training, Teacher Training Center. She currently serves as spiritual director to many rabbis, cantors, and Jewish lay leaders. Nancy also teaches widely on the topics of Judaism, healing, and spirituality, with many articles, books, and offerings she's continually bringing forth to the community. And she is the series editor for Life Lights, a Jewish series of informational, inspirational pamphlets on challenges in the emotional and spiritual life. Nancy also, lives in Northampton, Massachusetts. Yay, our favorite place, with her husband, and has grown her children there. And she's also a part of her beloved synagogue community, Congregation B'nai Israel in Northampton, where I'm just saying, Arnie and I were co-presidents in 1987, 88. Oh my heavens, what a time in our lives. So there's personal and professional and spiritual connections. I am so grateful that Nancy can be with us today. She continually is opening the hearts of teachers and leaders and community literally around the world. And today we'll have the opportunity to practice the opening of our own hearts, joining with Nancy in her teachings and guidance. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Laurel. That was a beautiful introduction. Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is wonderful to be part of the Lehitra Ot to Cantor Laurel Zarkessler moment in the life of Congregation Bethel. I'm really honored to be here, to be part of this moment in this way. Yeah, I know it's a big moment for everybody, for the congregation and for your beloved Laurel. And I hope that today will be another way to honor and to uplift and to recognize your beloved Laurel, who herself has and does spread so much light. I do not need to tell you that. So thank you so much. And I'm going to start in. So today I'm going to share some teachings to help us settle into what we might call Shabbat consciousness. I sometimes call a consciousness of the deep mind, the settled mind, as in a Shabbat mind, a settled mind. I sometimes think about what I'll be sharing, the work, as practicing the presence of God, as a devotional meditation. And I want to make sure that each of you knows that you are so welcome here, whatever your background in sitting quietly and working with the mind and body in meditation. If this is your very first introduction, that's great. And if you're a seasoned meditator, that's great. I really hope that you'll find something of value, both in the teachings and in the quiet time after each of the teachings. So I'll be sharing 4 different teachings throughout the service. And after each, we'll have a chance to just sit quietly for a little bit. So first, let's just arrive for a moment. Find a comfortable way to sit wherever you are. I'm assuming most of you are sitting, but you don't have to be. You can be standing. If you have challenges with sitting, you could certainly be lying down, although there's always a hazard of falling asleep. But if that's what you need, that's another kind of Shabbat consciousness. So find a comfortable way to sit. And I just want to introduce you to the idea of an anchor in our sitting quietly in order to rest back into the deep mind and just watch lovingly what arises for us. So an anchor is a way that we can collect the attention. Very often people teach about the breath. The breath is a great anchor because as long as we're alive, it's always there. And so we can turn to it. Another great thing about the breath, it's always now. We can't connect to the breath in the past or the future. It's always now and it's always here. It's here and now. So the breath is a wonderful anchor. However, for some of us, the breath can actually not be a good anchor because it connects into maybe times in our life that were more traumatic when the breath was challenged. There was maybe panic or we held our breath. So it doesn't have to be the breath. So, or you might have challenges on the physical level if you have real problems with asthma or something else. So the breath is just convenient. There's nothing, perfect or better about the breath as an anchor. We can also use sensation in the body as an anchor. So for instance, the sensation of pressure. If you sit right now and feel, where is your body meeting whatever's supporting you for sitting or standing? Can you feel the back of your thighs, your bottom, your back, your feet, where there's pressure, a sense of pressure? Maybe your hands are touching each other in your lap. Just connect with, oh, that could be an anchor. Just the sensation of pressure, not the thoughts about the sensation of pressure, but dropping into the body just to feel, to sense, oh, pressure. Some people use sound as an anchor, just sounds coming and going. So the ears become wide antenna and sounds just come to us. And we put our attention there as the anchor. Try that. You don't have to go out and get any sounds. They just come to you, coming and going. So when we choose an anchor in our meditation, we notice that's where we're placing the attention. And we're less aware of other things because everything is always happening at the same time, isn't it? It's just about where's our attention. Everything's happening at the same time, always. But where are we placing our attention? So we can place our attention, choose an anchor. The breath is lovely too. Let's do that for a moment. So allow the attention to rest gently on the in-breath and the out-breath. So if you like, I would suggest, if it's not a problem for you, let's choose the breath as an anchor this morning. Now we'll also notice that we choose the anchor, we invite, ask the attention to rest on the anchor, sensations of breathing in, out. You can lightly say in, out, rising, falling, because the chest or abdomen is rising, falling, whatever you like to keep yourself a little bit focused. But we'll notice that the mind, the attention actually goes elsewhere, doesn't it? Pretty quickly. And that's fine. That's what the mind does. That's not a problem. We're not, concentration is not, the word concentration we think of as very, very tight. So I like to call this collecting the attention. We're collecting the attention from the four corners of the earth, right? Because it goes everywhere. We're just collecting the attention. And the mind then will throw up all sorts of things, thoughts, feelings, sensations. That's fine. Just notice and come back to the anchor. It's how it works. It's not a problem. Okay, so that's going to be our general practice today. Any questions, brief questions before we go on? Is that pretty clear? As long as that's pretty clear. Okay, thumbs up, Benjamin, thank you. That's helpful, thumbs up, okay. So now a little bit of teaching. In the Song of Songs, chapter 5, verse 2, the beginning of that verse reads, Ani yeshena v'libi er, kol dodi dofek pikhi. I was asleep, but my heart was awake. I heard the sound of my lover saying, oops, I gotta go off the exit full screen, that's fine. I heard the sound of my lover saying, open for me. So I'd like to focus just on these first four words, Ani yeshena v'libi er. I was asleep, but my heart was awake. Now, commonly in spiritual circles, if someone tells you they're asleep, it usually means something negative, doesn't it? They're not paying attention to their lives. Maybe they're a little bit numbed out or just unable to wake up to what's true, to what is so. Ordinarily, we talk about wanting to wake up in our lives, to wake up to what's true, to attend with focus to what's unfolding moment by moment, or to pay attention to our true nature. So it might be surprising to learn that there are Jewish commentaries that understand this verse from a very positive point of view. You might know that the rabbis interpreted the Song of Songs as an allegory. Song of Songs is incredible, in fact, kind of racy love poetry, but the rabbis commonly interpret it as an allegory of the love between God and the people of Israel. They also interpreted it as an allegory of the love between God and the individual, between God and the soul. And that's how the medieval Jewish philosophers in particular did read it. These philosophers were contemplatives at heart. From a contemplative point of view, they said, this verse tells us something very important about how to engage in meditative practice, in how to train the mind, and ultimately then open to God. Ani yeshena v'libi er. Ani, many of you know from your modern Hebrew or your other places, ani means I, the pronoun I. Ani yeshena. My I was asleep. V'libi, my heart, and remember in Jewish thought, lev, that's libi, my heart, lev, libi. Lev means the heart mind, not just a place of feeling, but a place of knowing. That faculty of knowing that's deeper than the rational mind. Libi, my heart mind was awake. We might say my small self went to sleep and the depth of my being awoke. This describes pretty well our meditation practice, what we're aiming for. When we meditate, the ani, the I, needs to grow quieter, stiller, to go to sleep, if you will, in order for the lev, the knowing heart, the heart mind, that which connects us to our fundamental nature, to be awake. We need to put to sleep what we often call default consciousness. We need to practice putting the ani, the I to sleep, in order that we might hear the knocking of our beloved, God, the Spirit, that which is calling to our lev, our heart mind, our deeper, more fundamental awareness to wake up. So that's what we practice. We collect the attention, cultivate concentration. I don't like that word concentration, but you understand. We collect the attention, we follow our anchor object. Today, perhaps for many of you, the breath or sensations in the body or sound, whatever you've chosen, but we follow our anchor object so that the I can calm down. Because when we sit down, we see how the I just keeps throwing up stories of one sort or another, doesn't it? That's what it does. So in meditation, we just watch and note that different thoughts and stories arise, and we let them pass with as much friendliness as we can muster so we can settle down. So often what happens, we start meditating. Any of you who has ever tried, well, find yourself here. We start meditating, we notice, my leg hurts. Or, you know, what am I going to have for lunch? Or we're rehearsing some things, you know, I can't believe she said that, or I can't believe I said that, or I can't bear this feeling, or when will that Amazon package arrive, or whoa, am I a challenge meditator? Whatever it is, it's really no problem. Really, really, really no problem. We note what arises moment by moment. And if you like, you can give a light label from time to time to help you see a note rather than get swept away. So if a pain in the leg arises, we're basically trying to stay with our anchor object, but we notice, oh, discomfort, burning, whatever it is, we're just trying not to identify too much with what's happening. We're just giving a little label. And then when it's not so strong, we come back to the anchor. When the thought of lunch or the Amazon package arises, we just step back a little and we notice, oh, thinking. It's a training, okay? It's a training. And then we gently return to our anchor. Sadness arises or any other emotion, we just note it. Oh, sadness or anger, whatever it is. We might even feel it in the body and really note what's happening in the body. Ooh, tightness or constriction or burning, whatever it is. An emotion is felt often in the body, right? And we could just be with it all as lovingly as possible, whatever it is. The I will be fast at work doing what it does. And we invite ourselves not to fight with it. We just let it all take place within the field of our loving awareness. So you might have noticed that the I is very concerned with comfort, with having lots of pleasant and no unpleasant experience. Ultimately, it's concerned with survival. And the I isn't bad. It's just that it gets in the way of our connecting to our deeper nature, to hearing the sound of the divine beloved calling us. So in our meditation practice, ultimately, we just want to help it calm down, to feel safe and secure, and to go to sleep a little bit. We can think about it as, you know, a child, a grandchild, someone, we're just trying to help calm down so we can go to sleep a little bit. So the great scholar Michael Fishbane, in his massive and masterful commentary to Song of Songs, paraphrases the philosophers on this verse, Ani Yeshena v'li bi'er. He says, quote, "The seeker experiences a dual state of consciousness. The surface mind, ordinarily concerned with the self and the ego, was stilled while in a deeper meditative awareness. In the latter state, one hears with an inner ear." Hearing with the inner ear. I mean, if there's ear, nose, and throat doctors here, we're not meaning like that inner ear. Okay, hearing with the inner ear. Kol dodi dofek, my beloved is calling, knocking. The deeper awareness is beckoning us. And once I settle the surface mind down a bit, and its constant stories and demands of me, I might actually hear that calling. Fishbane writes, quote, "The self in meditative awareness suddenly feels the presence of the beloved, beseeching a more intensified indwelling." So beautiful, more intensified indwelling. That's Shekhinah, isn't it? Such a beautiful reading and inspiration for our practice. We encourage the everyday mind, the surface mind, the selfing mind to calm down. And we do that by not fighting with it, not fighting with thoughts and feelings and sensations. We just let them be to the best of our ability, not getting tangled up in them. This is practice. This is a life practice. We just recognize thoughts and feelings and sensations as they arise. Maybe we label them from time to time if that helps us see and hold what is arising within the field of loving awareness. And we just note, try not to get swept away. And we will get swept away. We notice it. Oh, swept away. Come back to the anchor. So when we do that over time, we find that the part of the mind that's all about me can relax a little, settle down and go to sleep, as it were. While the deeper mind, the fundamental mind, the heart mind of awareness itself, wakes up. And we find that for a little time, maybe sometimes only for a moment, we can rest there. So I'm going to sing this chant for the first few words, and then we'll sit quietly for a few minutes, maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes, just to see, find that anchor, notice with loving awareness what comes up, come back, just as an effort, as an example for how we might encourage the selfing mind to calm down. Ani yeshena v'libia kol dodi dofek itchili. Ani yeshena v'libia kol dodi dofek itchili. Ani yeshena v'libia kol dodi dofek bitchili. So let's sit, connect with our anchor. Allow what arises, come back to the anchor. Encouraging the ani just to quiet down a little bit. Gently come back to the anchor again and again. Relax where there's any gripping in the body and mind to the best of your ability. Just encourage a little letting relax. Three more gentle breaths back to the anchor. Ani yeshena v'libye kol dodido fake pitchili. Raise your hand if you felt like that was really challenging. Yeah, it can be really challenging. So thank you for trying that with me. So I'd like to move on to teach another piece that's connected with our liturgy. And that's Ashrei Yoshvei Vetecha, Od Yehalalu Chasela. Happy are those who sit in your house, God. We can still say hallelujah. Thank you, Rachel. So many of you are familiar with this verse from Psalm 84 because it appears in our liturgy. It's one of the two verses that precedes the Ashrei. this acrostic poem telling of God's glory from Aleph to Tav, one verse for every letter. But in front of the acrostic poem, the compiler of the Siddur appended 2 verses, and this is one of them. Happy are those who sit in your house. They can still say hallelujah. That's us, Yoshvei Vetecha, those who sit in God's house. We are the Yoshvim on Shabbat. Yoshvim, we sit in God's house. Like to think about God's house as the earth itself. We are sitting in God's house. And so long as we're alive on the planet, we can still recognize the splendor of creation and its source and shout out, hallelujah. And there's a second verse that the compiler of the Siddur chose for us to contemplate as well. And this one comes from Psalm 144. It too begins with the word ashrei, happy. Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo. Ashrei ha'am she'Adonai Elohav. Happy is the people for whom this is so. Happy the people whose God is Adonai. So I'd like to share a story that's told about Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polnoi, a most prominent student of the Baal Shem Tov. And it centers on this Ashrei verse, and particularly the word kacha. The word kacha is hard to translate exactly, but it means something like, so it is, this is so. Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo, happy the people for whom this is so. So I'm going to read the story. It's from, I found it in Martin Buber's Tales of the Hasidim. It's the early tales. And here's the story. Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, the Rav of Polnoi, was once invited to a circumcision which was to take place in a nearby village. When he arrived, one man was still lacking to make up the quorum of 10. They weren't looking for women at this point. The tzaddik was very much annoyed that he was forced to wait. By the way, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef was well known for his impatience and anger. So anyway, he was very much annoyed that he was forced to wait. Waiting always displeased him. A heavy rain had been falling since early morning, so they could not get hold of a passerby for quite a while. At last, they saw a baker coming down the street. When they asked him to attend the ceremony as the 10th man, he said, "Kacha, so be it," and entered. When they offered him warm tea, he said, "Kacha, so be it." After the circumcision, they invited him to the meal, and he gave the same reply. Finally, his host asked him, "Why do you always say the same thing?" The man answered, "For it is written, Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo, happy is the people for whom it is so." And with that, he vanished before the eyes of all. That night, the Rav could not sleep. Over and over, he heard the baker say, "Kacha," until it became manifest to him that it could have been none other but Elijah, who had come to reprove him for his tendency to grow annoyed. Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo, he whispered to himself, and instantly fell asleep. I love that story. The baker understood that sometimes you get invited to a big feast, and sometimes you sit at home without much in your cupboard. Sometimes the synagogue, we remember and anticipate, is full of eager daveners, and sometimes you wait a long time for the 10th person to make a minyan. But what's the use in getting angry if in a particular moment things aren't going your way? It's fabulous to practice the kacha refrain when we meditate. That's how we train ourselves to use it in our lives more generally. So in meditation, the refrain goes something like this. I translate that as, "Oh, it's like this now." Or, anger feels like this. Itchy feels like this. Joy feels like this. Sleepy feels like this. Whatever we're noticing. Kacha, it's like this now. This refrain was taught to me by one of my meditation teachers, Philip Moffitt, and I found it really useful, especially in being able to sit with what's unpleasant or uncomfortable. It helps prevent a fight in the mind before it starts. But this refrain is wonderful to use with any experience to help us be with what's arising, to remind ourselves, it's like this now. And of course, it's always changing. The nows keep changing and shifting. We train ourselves to be with what's arising in our life and on the meditation cushion in any moment by saying, kacha, so be it. It's like this now. It's like this now. I mean, what are you going to do in this moment? In this moment, it's like this now. Or X feels like this. Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo. Happy is the people who can say, it's like this now. Some of my students do a slightly different variation on kacha, which I also really love. They say, oh, human experience of impatience, human experience of discomfort, human experience of joy. That is to say, both the kacha and human experience of allows us not to identify with what's happening, but just noticing, oh, it's like this now. So we're going to do another short period of meditation with it's like this now. Again, coming to our anchor object, noticing what comes up. And when we notice it, oh, it's like this now. Oh, impatience is like this now. Thinking is like this now. Planning is like this now. Oh, it's like this now. Ashrei ha'am she'kacha lo, Ashrei ha'am she'Adonai Elohav, Ashrei ha'am she'kacha lo, Ashrei ha'am she'Adonai Elohav haidai. Handa da 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 da, handa da 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 da, handa da 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 da, handa da haida. Handa da da da, handa da, handa da da da, handa da, handa da 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 da. So for Ashrei, let's just come back to our anchor. And when we notice something arising, we can just gently say, oh, it's like this now. Pressure is like this now. Itchy is like this now. Sadness is like this now. It's like this now, kacha. And we allow the moments to unfold. We'll just sit for a few minutes. אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Oh, Hanishama, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, Nishama, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Baruch Hu Dirwan Shekhinah Holy name. When I call on the light of my soul, I come home. Baruch Oh, dear one, Shekhinah, holy name. When I call on the light of my soul, I come home. Baruch Hu, dear one, Shekhinah, holy name. When we call on the light of our soul, we come home. Baruch Hu Adonai Hamevorach.
Baruch Adonai Leolam Ha'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Ha'ed. Take one long, open-eyed meditation moment to just look at what is, at the gorgeousness, the awesomeness, the beauty of what is all around you. Hopefully, you're near a window, or perhaps you're outside and can truly, truly take in the splendor and the beauty of just what is in its fullness for all of us to say yes to. And breathe it in. Acha. המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה וראשית המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה וראשית. המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית. המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית. ככה.
So we've reached the point in our service where we focus on Ahava Rabbah, the great love. And in order to do that, that is right before the Shema, I'd like to return to Song of Songs. In chapter 2, verse 6, we read a beautiful line that the maiden says about her lover. Smolo tachat liroshi vimino tachavkeni. His left hand was under my head and his right hand embraced me. Remember, Song of Songs has been interpreted widely by the rabbis not only as an allegory between God and the people Israel, but also as an allegory between God and the individual soul. So what if we imagine today that God is holding us, God's left hand under our head, right hand embracing us. What if we imagine that God is holding us, embracing us, as it were, in a loving, secure way right here, right now? Shefa Gold wrote a beautiful chant that I'll chant in a little bit, and her interpretation of these words. And sometimes I know I can just chant these words and I begin to feel that I'm embraced by God, by creation, by being itself. But sometimes we need a little help to feel God's embrace. We need an on-ramp, if you will. In my theology, I do believe that we feel God's love when love comes to us through other people, the love they show us, love that animals show us. But what I'd like to do today is actually try a little bit of the on-ramp practice so we might feel God's embrace. So I'd like to invite you to remember a time. This is just going to be for you. Remember a time when you were embraced, might be a physical embrace, hugged. It's pretty precious these days. Or held in some way, physical or otherwise, by another person, even for a brief moment. A moment that helped you feel safe, worthy, seen, cared for. A moment when someone else showed you love. Just a moment of being seen and cared for by someone who's been in your life. Could be a trusted teacher, a friend, or even someone you don't know well. I actually often, for this work, which is taught to me by John McCransky, it's about cultivating this field of care. I often think, I don't know why, but decades ago, there was a pizza vendor in Manhattan, lower Manhattan, and I bought a piece of pizza, and it wasn't a great day for me. Maybe that's why I was getting a piece of pizza. But I walked out without a napkin. And he really chased me out of the store and down the street to give me a napkin because he wanted to make sure I had a napkin. So, I wasn't a mess. And for some reason that touched me so in that moment, like it was just kind. So it doesn't have to be a big moment, it's just a moment. It might be a moment with a beloved or a moment with a stranger or a pet, but wherever we kind of felt that sense of love and care. Not the perfect moment, not the perfect person, just a moment. So I want to give you a moment to just connect with your moment and allow that to be felt in your body. feels so good to receive the love and care of another. And as I say in my theology, I know this as God's love coming to me in a particular way. And this is, so release all the particulars of what you just brought up, but can you still have some of that feeling in the body remain? That's the feeling we want to invoke when we think about God embracing us. We want to let that feeling wash over us and gently fill us as we practice opening to God's love. This becomes the field that we cultivate and in which we collect the attention and allow whatever arises as it will to come, as we've been doing. But we really have this great sense of we're sitting in a loving field as everything comes up. An intention for our sitting for another few moments could be what my teacher Sylvia Borstein has as her intention. May I meet this moment fully. May I meet this moment as a friend. Whatever arises, can I experience myself being held in a field of care? And then it can be a bit easier to allow whatever arises to come and go. And we rest back in the field of care. That's another way to cultivate this Shabbat consciousness. So here's the chant. I love it so much. It's a great affirmation. I am resting in this divine embrace, so timeless time and placeless place. I am resting in this divine embrace, so timeless time and placeless place. Smolo tachat leroshi vimino. Techabkeini smolo tachat leroshi vimino techabkeini. So I'm going to suggest, rather than singing along, allow yourself to, this will be our meditation for this preparation of Ahava Rabbah, just allow to the best of your ability with the kind of on-ramping of that moment of feeling cared for, just rest as I'm singing to the best of your ability in the sense or the idea, the possibility that we are resting in God's embrace. We don't have to hold it all. We are as well held. I am resting in this divine embrace, so timeless time and placeless place. I am resting in this divine embrace, so timeless time and placeless place. Oh Lord, tachat leroshi vimino, techabkeini smolo. Tachat leroshi vimino techabkeini. I am resting in this divine embrace, so timeless time and placeless place. I am resting in this divine embrace, so timeless time and placeless place. Smolo tachat leroshi vimino, techabkeini smolo tachat leroshi vimino, techabkeini. So you might want to practice this, not just this morning during Shabbat, but in other times in your life, cultivating this field of care and evoking this sense of being loved, cared for, seen and held. No matter who or how this comes from, I do see this as a manifestation of the root of love, which is the source of love, the divine. And when we cultivate this field, we are more able to meet each moment fully and with friendliness. Everything still arises in the mind because it does. That's what the I does, the Ani. But we're a little softer, and we don't identify so much with each presentation of consciousness, each thought, each feeling. It happens. It happens in the field of our loving awareness. And in this way, we allow the Ani to settle down, and the Shabbat mind, the let it be mind, the deeper consciousness to manifest, generous, spacious, allowing, and kind. Love itself lies at the center of our tradition, and we don't always recognize it, but it's true. And if we study the Shama, we know that it's at the center of our liturgy right here, where we offer a prayer proclaiming God's love before we recite the biblical verses of Shema. In the morning, the prayer is Ahava Rabbah, as today, great love, Ahava Rabbah. In the evening, we offer Ahavat Olam, everlasting love. And in the evening prayer, we ask God, Ahavatacha al tasir mimenu lolamim, please never take this love away. So here's a teaching from Reb Zalman Schachter Shalomi about this everlasting love, this great love. He says, and it's his practice, it was his practice. Ahava Rabbah avtanu, with a great love, you have loved us. But he says this does not just refer to the totality of Israel, because the prayer is in the plural. You really have to be yourself in saying that, he says. Most of the time when we say, you've loved us with a great love, and please don't ever take that love away, we hang up the phone right away. We don't give enough time for that to happen, meaning to feel the great love. He says, if I want to give those words real meaning, I need to sit and feel God's love, the love that loves us, no matter what. This is not a matter of whether I think I am worthy of love, Reb Zalman teaches. Nope, this comes from an altogether different place. An alternative form of Ahava Rabbah, with great love, is Ahavat Olam, a love of all ages, forever love, a love of the universe. Was playing with Olam. He says, the very fact that I exist is because I'm being loved into life. That's how I understand these words. An important part of davening is to just sit and be nachat ruach, in a serenity of spirit, and to allow for that to come in, meaning the love. He says, if I can do this, or if I can, I do this in a minyan, but before I can feel it in a group, I have to allow myself to feel it as an individual. He says, I once heard Terry Gross of Fresh Air interview Gene Robinson, the first openly gay Anglican bishop. He had endured such controversy. He had brought so much rage down upon him from the church he loved. They were talking about his prayer life these days, and he said, quote, what I do is I sit quietly and I close my eyes and I let God love me. That's where I remember who I am, whose I am. Isn't that great? What I do is I sit quietly and I close my eyes and I let God love me. So it's a practice like everything else, friends. It's a practice to let God love me. So I'm going to sing this one more time, and we'll see if we can soften just a little bit and open to the idea that right here, right now, we are held, and we might open to a sense of God's love. I am resting in this divine embrace, so timeless time and placeless place. I am resting in this divine embrace, so timeless time and placeless place, Molo, Tachat ledoshi vimino, Tilchab keheni, Smolo, Tachat ledoshi vimino, Tilchab keheni. I am resting in this divine embrace, so timeless time and placeless place. I am resting in this divine embrace, so timeless time and placeless place.
Yisrael, Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Echad. Yata, et Adonai Elohecha,
לכל
lechol
לבבך,
lechol
על נפשך,
ולכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבבך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Hamat.
So we move from Shama to Amidah. And I just want to say a few words before Amidah. I don't know what your practice is, if you use the liturgy or you do something else, you go outside for a few minutes or you sit. But I think this, yeah. So all the above, all the above, all the above. So this is just a little teaching and another idea, the last idea to kind of pull it all together before the Amidah that might help us with this work of practicing the presence of God, of letting go of the default consciousness, the weekday consciousness, of inviting the deeper mind. And we've really covered a lot of ground already before the Amidah. We started with encouraging the default consciousness to go to sleep, so a deeper mind, heart, the Lev could awaken. And then we've seen that whatever arises as we sit and intend toward a deeper consciousness, it's okay. Kaha, it's like this now. We might even have cultivated moments of sensing that God is holding us, loving us, caring for us. We learned that in our meditation practice, struggling with the default mind doesn't tend to still it. But then when we notice distraction or discomfort or perseveration or whatever it is, we can just note with kindness, let it be, return to the anchor, collect the mind, and allow the deeper awareness to arise. And you might have realized today or at other times of practice that with enough collection of mind, we can even sometimes just let go of the anchor entirely, rest back in awareness in the left mind where we might hear the voice of God. It's a big agenda for one morning, I admit it, but I'm hoping that these ideas and this practice might fill you at other times. So I want to offer just one other idea, but a teeny bit of background. Many of you know that the Hasidic movement, a large-scale popular mystical revival movement that started in Eastern Europe in the mid-18th century, stressed a few fundamental theological tenets that were common to all branches of the movement as it grew. And one of those was this belief, Malo kol haaretz kevodo. The whole world is filled with God's presence. The founder of Hasidism, Israel Baal Shem Tov, really wanted to emphasize the immanence of God, the sense that, yes, the entire earth is a manifestation of the one transcendent being, and that our work is to recognize this truth wherever we are and whatever is happening. So Malo kol haaretz, the whole earth is filled with God's presence, is a tenet and a phrase that any good Hasid would know like the back of his or her hand. It was a fundamental truth, like the earth rotates around the sun, might be for us. So this is the background to the little story I want to share about Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kutsk. And again, I'm reading from Buber's Tales. So this is, I'm sure you've heard this in one form or another, but I think you'll learn something a little different with this background. So here's the story. Oh, gotta find the Kutzker story. Here it is. Where is the dwelling of God? Aye makomo. Where is God dwelling? This was the question with which the Rabbi of Kutsk surprised a number of learned men who happened to be visiting him. They laughed at him. What a thing to ask. Is not the whole world full of God's glory? It's like, come on, Rabbi Kutsk, from Kutsk. You're asking us like a fundamental, we know that. The whole earth is filled with God's glory. But then he answered his own question. God dwells wherever we let God in. So it's so interesting, isn't it? You might have heard that in another way. Yeah, God, but now you get it. There was a background there. You know, where does God dwell? Well, we know the whole earth is filled with God's glory. Yes, yes, we can think that, talk about that. It'll come out of our mouth every third sentence. But wait a minute. Are we really practicing in such a way that we're letting God in? That's where God dwells, in this quality of willingness to let God in. Are we willing? Are we willing? Are we willing to soften the heart to receive the presence? You know, the answer is sometimes yes, and it's sometimes no. Or sometimes maybe a little. Our willingness to let God in depends on a whole host of things. How we slept last night, what we ate for breakfast, what our last conversation was before we sat to daven. Our willingness depends on a whole host of things. And in some spiritual literature, you'll find that this area of our disposition is talked about in terms of a pair of opposites, willingness or willfulness. Willfulness would be characterized by the inclination to assert the ani all the time. My egocentric needs, putting myself at the center. Willingness would be the attitude of letting the ani slide into the background a bit, go to sleep a little bit so another voice might be heard. Willingness is not something we can be willful about. But when we feel safe and secure, as we cultivated with this field of care, when we feel we're held in a larger embrace, the willful self might feel itself invited into a kind of softening such that we find ourselves more willing to let God in. So in our avodah toward the Amidah today, I invite you to connect with your field of care, the sense of God's love or a caring moment you can remember, let it wash over you so that you feel in this moment you are indeed safe and secure, worthy, and having been loved into being, as Reb Zalman said. And from this place, let's see if we can soften just a little bit and open into that sense of willingness. So just a song to encourage us on our chant sheet. Open to me, open your heart. Let my presence rest on you. Open to me, open your heart. Let my presence rest on you. Maloko la'aretz. I am within you and all around you. I fill the universe. I am within you and all around you. I fill the universe. Open to me, open your heart. Let my presence rest on you. Open to me, open your heart. Let my presence rest on you. So we take a few moments for the Amidah, encouraging our willingness, and I'll ask you, Cantor Laurel Kessler, to bring us out when it's time, your customary time for Amidah. Let my presence rest on you.
Tehi alai birkat shalom. Tehi alai birkat lachamim. Tehi alai birkat bריאות. Tehi alai birkat mincha. May we be blessed with peace. May we be blessed with compassion. May we be blessed with health. May we be blessed with joy.